So my name is Lorenzo Montagna. I work with PwC. Today the idea is to move to the children question, which is why, which is always the big question. So we heard a lot of very interesting points yesterday and already today. But I think when you move to the business, there is only one question, which is not how, but it's why. We all love innovation. We are here to talk about and listen about innovation, but innovation doesn't necessarily mean business results. Sometimes there is a trade-off because people that is really focusing on delivering the numbers and the business don't see innovation as a key to success, but sometimes even a kind of risk. What is interesting to say, and there is a number here, which is 65% of business people believe that the success of their company and the future of the company is really linked to digital. So digital is one thing, and innovation, by the way, as Pier Mattia said today, it's not really just a tech thing. Innovation is something more profound, I would say, more deep in the company and in the culture of the people. In fact, this is another study we did. The real problem of innovation is not at the top, it's at the bottom. People don't like to do innovation. There is lack of corporate vision. There are some risks. In everything we do in our life, there is a risk. But when there is a kind of risk in adopting the technology, it's very easy to find good excuses. There is a kind of culture resistance, and sometimes people, they don't know exactly what are we talking about when we talk about new digital solutions. So I want to show you a video, which is this one.
Technologies will change our world. So here you are, waiting for a time where robots don't just assemble things, but help your customers. When your office is smart enough to know when you arrive and what you need. You're waiting for a machine to call for its own repairs, so it never breaks down. For augmented and virtual reality to bring your global business together. Waiting to provide safe, immediate access to remote places. To give your customers a virtual tour before they make an actual purchase. For a time when replacement parts can be 3D printed on site. For blockchain to automate trust and authenticate what's real. For a more predicted, more analyzed, more precise bird's eye view. You're waiting for transformational growth for your customers, your people, and your bottom line. But there's one thing we should mention. It's all here, right now. While you're waiting, it's passing you by. These 8 technologies are essential in reshaping today. Stop waiting.
So I strongly believe, and the same, of course, for the company, that innovation is something that you must adopt as a cultural thing, and it's not to postpone and to see if there are other competitors doing something like this, if there are more data or research to do about this. So this idea of waiting is where you usually miss the train of innovation. In my opinion, innovation is essentially a distraction of your prioritization. That's the real point. You have a plan, you deal with the headquarters at the beginning of the year, you have to execute everything which is happening in the meanwhile with good ideas, and this is our job as consultancy, kind of eyes opening on the future, of course should be a kind of tricky thing, and it's distracting you from your execution. But if you just execute what you did already decided 1 year ago, perhaps you are out of innovation by default. So the real point about innovation, I think, it's to do it or not, or better, to move or don't. And the point is this one. Is really urgent to do this? We have many things to do in a company. It should be CRM, you are working on your retail experience, you are working on many, many things. The point is this something I have to put on top of my agenda? Reality, not. You can skip it. But there is a problem. which is usually where innovation comes an issue, which is essential to someone else, which is your customer. So I will focus more now the rest of the presentation of what's happening in the world around us and to let you understand why this technology are essential as in the video, focusing of course on AR and VR. First, this is a study of 2017. You see this is a kind of representation of all the technologies that are around us since that time. And you see that virtual reality and augmented reality are the ones that are the most safe if you have to invest. They are out of any inflection and they are in a kind of stabilization, 2017. The same company just in April said 100 million people is ready to buy and to do online shopping with augmented reality. This guy that usually delivers said he wants to have 1 billion people on its own platform, which is, by the way, Oculus. This guy, before the big bang of the iPhone sales results, said that AR is fundamental for the growth of iPhone. If we take also studies like this one of Goldman Sachs, we can see immediately that after video games, healthcare will be the second largest industry investing in this industry. So we are not talking about Pikachu or Pokemon anymore, but this technology is going to save life. And Microsoft is working exactly on this. One of the goals of Microsoft is to allow any surgeon, later on a relevant speaker will talk about this in the afternoon, but this is where the technology is going. This is interesting to also understand the value, the size of the market. This is Digital Capital, which is a company of Nielsen data. And in 2018, this market was around 7 billion. It is going to be in 2023 almost 90. Please note that the smart glass, so a kind of B2B usage, will be dominant. VR will be smaller. It's huge to see how big is these smart glasses. And any company that is producing PC is working on smart glasses. It should be Lenovo with the Think Reality project. It should be HP. Everyone is in the room. So why we think this technology are relevant? It's not because it's us to say, but it's the consumer. So we always listen to user, and these three things, especially Internet of Things, augmented and virtual reality, are at the top of the growth in the next future. It's also interesting if we split this to see that augmented and virtual reality, if you combine them, again, because of course we talk about XR as an addition of virtual and augmented, it's immediately after the Internet of Things. Very quickly, just one data. You will see here that this is an Italian study, so we are talking about our country. In the next years, so since 18 to 22, this, in terms of media usage, VR is growing 35%. All the other media are suffering, with the exception of video games and esports, which is another relevant trend. So in PwC, we don't believe it's just a question of a nice technology doing cool stuff, but this is going to have a very relevant impact on the society. These are the four reasons we believe this is something really to do now, before I would say it's too late. You can stay comfortable in your room and wait for someone else to jump and to pass you, but these are four reasons to let you think about this technology. The first one is that there is a new dimension of computing. It's called spatial computing. So if we think about our digital life, it's in a box. So these are companies I work with in a box, in a box, in a small box, always something on a screen. So essentially, we are out of any story. We just look at a screen, very small. The more we go ahead, the smaller it is, and we are completely out. It's interesting to say that schermo in Italian comes from Latin and seems to be a kind of defense. So the digital world, it's inside the screen, so you are defended on your own reality on the other side. So this is going to change. This is a magazine well known. This is a special number on this idea of a mirror world, where essentially the content it's becoming the context, where the screen is not proposing us something different, but it's proposing our own reality. So this is Google Maps in reality. So I see through the phone. I see informations. I can buy and recognize 1,200,000,000 objects. It should be a cover of a CD. It should be whatever you want. And this is the case, for example, of Amazon. It's not just Google. It's using the mobile phone to see yourself and to change your makeup. It's to do e-commerce. I like this specific dress, and I can see it, but not on a picture. I can see the model in my room. So you understand, this is not the traditional way we see content. We are going to live content, because this lady should be here with me. And it's completely different. So welcome to this idea, which is far away to be just romantic and, let's say, academic. This is really happening. The second thing which is important to say is that when a technology explodes, it's because it's representing a kind of ecosystem. So it happened with TV, it happened with the computer, it happened with the smartphone. Smartphone makes sense because there were apps. Without any app, the phone is just a phone. You call, you don't do anything more. So what's happening here, and this is a book very well known in the Valley, this convergence, it's happening because all these kind of things we talk about, which is cloud, 5G, AI, machine learning, and also the old-fashioned people with this PC and smartphone need to relaunch. They need to have new consumers or new content. And so everything is converging on these two technology of AR and VR. The other thing it's important to say, so it's spatial computing, it's not just AR and VR, it's AR and VR that are going to be the one representing all this new world. The third thing has been already said before, it's also the opportunity to create new experience. These experiences are not, again, Pokemon. These are really something affecting our activity. So I like also to say there is an IoT, which is the one we know, which is Internet of Things, but there is also an Internet on Things. So whatever you see in real life becomes full of data. You have the power of the data that usually is somewhere else. You are working in a factory and the people with the information is somewhere else. This is not going to happen anymore. So you will have the power of the white collar in a blue collar, risking perhaps in some cases life, or to be paid to be efficient, and they are still using guns, laser guns from perhaps the 70s. This is just having a look to the pack on the right and have all the information and skip on. By the way, Amazon, of course, is working this way. So VR is not a fake reality, a kind of B-series of the real life. It's something that expands our opportunity. Of course, it should be great to visit Venice, but perhaps if you are in a small village of Kentucky and you just want to have a look to Venice, you can see in virtual reality, and then perhaps you will be in Venice, perhaps better informed on what to do and how to move. So this VR thing, it's interesting because it's not anymore just a representation of films, entertainment, but it's becoming truly our life. And in our life, back to what we see and what we do at PwC, of course, it's the training. Because the basic of learning is that if you read the things, you forget it. If you see, you remember a bit, but you will never forget something that you tried. So every time you use your car, you perhaps learned to drive the car 20 years ago and you never took a lesson. Think about the theory. I don't remember anything of the theory because I was studying it on a book. So we can train on our skills with the absolute realism. We can also train on soft skills. So we are with machine learning and many data working on kind of alias of call as you want avatars, and also you can try to do a better, find new solutions, for example, for salespeople. Or, this is an interesting thing, you can think about creating experiences. So something that we did as a PwC is to take a lot of people, CFO, people that is working in banks, and simulate what happens if you have a cyber attack, which is something that happens. The point is that it's better doesn't happen, but if it happens, how are you hurt? How do you act? What do you do? And so in this experience, the fact happens, and you have to choose. Do you want to be the CEO, the CFO, the COO? And you have different, let's say, adventures. Of course, it's a highly, highly professional thing, but you understand it's different to say these are the risks on a paper and these are the risks that you are living if you don't take a decision on this subject. It's also interesting, we always talk about drones and the future, but no one is really representing this. So as PwC, we are working in this kind of environment. So we want to understand how will be the future, and the only way to do it is by VR. I jump almost to the conclusion, which is why we should think about AR and VR as the next investment for our company. The business opportunity are huge because this technology, if we really want to summarize, are on three things. They're working on space. Clearly on VR, I can represent a space which is digital. They work on time. So when you go to some cultural events with your phone, you see the building how it was in the past, or you can see how it should be in the future. And the context, which is the mix of the two, it's something where XR is the only technology that can work on. And the point is it's interesting here, I think, is that this technology, it's about you and it's about your customer. So it's a technology that doesn't mean anything unless you really find a way to create, to generate new meaningful experiences for your customer. The point is that usually customers are much more ahead of the companies, and so there will be, and you will see, a high demand of this product already now, and perhaps you don't know. So these technologies are very large, I would say. They pass through all the processes of a product, of a company, from the prototype of an object or of the experience. So I worked on interesting project where we were focusing on the experience of the customer. Then, of course, we talked a lot. You bring the technology into where you build the product. Training, we said a lot. sales and marketing, of course, can be affected. And it's interesting to say that customer care, it's where the largest investment has been done. Walmart bought 17,000 Oculus Go to train 1 million employees to manage customer care. So something that is, again, very personal. It's very, it's people. So I want to show you some ideas taking retail. I take retail because this is a survey, again, it's of 1 year ago, on e-commerce and retail in general. We don't have the time, and this is not a... so you just have a look at the very top. You can see that people would like to have more opportunity to try this technology, because some people tried, some others liked, some others not, but 40% of these people expect to have this experience, but they're not getting. At the very bottom, you see the opposite. They are, this is, let's say, how professional are the people working in the company, working in the shop. The other thing which is interesting, again, there is a high demand. They never had the opportunity to try to do e-commerce or to use this technology. So they know the technology, somehow someone is already doing something, but 73% of the people is waiting you to do something. Why it's big for enterprise? Very quickly, let me try to see if I can do this, because it's interesting. So this is an apartment, apparently. In reality, this is an entire building of Milan that has been sold just in virtual reality, with a kind of realism that was impressive. So the people was walking like this around the swimming pool because they didn't want to get wet. And of course, you can personalize whatever you want, the colors, the materials of your house. This takes 1/5 of the time usually spent to sell a house, because we took the people in the house. What about the design of a shop? What is the experience? What happens if I start to enter into this shop? Where I'm going? On the left, on the right? Do I like this or that? We can study everything. It should be that you find yourself, and this is something really happening with the research. How do you act? How do you interact with the products? And this is interesting. Why do you leave back a product? Perhaps because you read something that you don't like. Everything here is not just the magic of the video representation, which is, this is not a picture. These are objects that you take, and this is just on a flat screen. Imagine to be there, but we track everything. Everything you do is tracked. Every single item is a number, or better, an explosion of numbers. Eye tracking, it's done directly inside the headset, so the precision, it's absolutely top. Think about this. We talked about the Brembo. Do you see how realistic is also the tire? You can read the tire. So usually when we test with these people, they fall down because they see the wheel, and then when they want to get up again, they try to find the rubber, the tire to stand up. Another thing which is interesting is when you take people inside your product, which is another interesting story. So we talked about yesterday of storytelling. This time with VR, it's story living. And another thing that we are working on, it's really interesting, is what about virtualizing data? We are taking decision of relevance, always looking to funny cake or Insta Excel spreadsheet. Again, like it was perhaps in the 80, 70. Whenever we can have a full representation of our data. We can really walk through the data and share the data with people that is on the other side of the world. And of course, with the augmented reality, we can do whatever we want. We can have also a very serious approach with, it should be pharma or very fancy below-the-line activity with fast mover consumer goods. So to come to the conclusion, I think if we want to summarize the approach of PwC is that we are approaching something that is a new era. It's a spatial computing era. We will live less and less inside screens. We will still have, of course, iPhone, PC, whatever, but many content will be accessible also in a different way. There will be a strong convergence of technology. So there is the interest of everyone, from producer of hardware, of software and experience, to have a new big boom. Otherwise, to be very frank, we are dead with social media network and the phone, which is perhaps a nonsense. There are new experiences and there are new opportunities. What we do, and again, back to the why we should help, because one of the reasons AR and VR are still to be adopted is that it has been a mess until, I would say, 6 months ago. The technology was changing very frequently. There has been many devices, many idea of devices, many idea of the content, and the industry and also this kind of events is helping, is supporting us to converge to something which is more scalable, stable. So what we do essentially, we train people, because if you don't know something, you will never take important decision and strategic decision. The idea here is not, as a consulting company, to do fancy stuff, to do a kind of advertising or funny thing, but it's really to adopt the technology as a strategic for the enterprise. We start also working on designing the experience. So what your user really wants and what they should do with your content. We work with the content with the top vendors. Of course, we are in the house of someone which is part of our partners and vendors. We do Kido. But we have also the opportunity to scale up everywhere in the world. So some example I show you. So the Walmart example is with a partner also of PwC. And also we can support everything which is related back to the security. It's not only to find the best solution for the hardware, but to make it safe, because you are going to expose yourself to your customer on this device. That's it. That's my email, and thank you so much for the attention.